Vendetta is so freaking disappointing me, man. I wanted to like Vendetta so much. Do we just want to go right into talking about it, man? I feel motivated. I feel like I want to talk about this. I feel like I need to vent. All right. Frick. Okay, we're going to do this. All right, listen. Okay, so Vendetta's just been like obviously at the forefront of this discussion for a while. They did finally nerf her overhead, and they gave the buff to the bug fix, quote unquote, to the boop on the overhead. So that's great. Good for that. Nicely done. But frick me, man, is it just not another case of like we're now 2.5 months since her release, and a character's identity just completely dragged the character into the dumpster fire? It bothers me because this is not the first time. I've warned you guys that we were going to talk about this at some point. I think now is as good of a time as any. It's not really even this is not okay. Let me be very clear. This is not going to be a discussion of broken by concept heroes like Widowmaker or Roadhog or Mercy, Superheart need work. These are going to be wasted opportunities. This is a wasted opportunity because somebody decides that this aspect of the character is where their hero fantasy lies, and only that, and everything else just doesn't matter that much. I'm being a little bit facetious, but you guys get my point. And we've seen it again and again. And I really think that there's a couple of characters that come to mind here. Freya, I think Sojourn comes to mind. I think Vendetta comes to mind. This isn't even really going to be a discussion of characters that have like problematic aspects. Like you could say, oh, Zarya, Diva, the 3-second matrix, frontline spam, Sombra is a character they're continuing. It's just like characters that they have potential, but for some reason, that one aspect of their kit feels like it gets prioritized. Like a blind spot. It's like making and changing everything about the character except the thing. And it's really funny because this will also keep the character OP in some cases, or it will shift the character into like unplayable win rate performance, like actually dumpster fire. Actual dumpster fire in terms of performance, like the lowest win rate DPS by a long shot for a long time, and yet they still get permanently banned to preserve their hero fantasy, And the problem stems from that last point for me, where like too much of a hero's power budget gets baked into their kit, and it gets seen as a requirement for the hero's existence. And I think that's incorrect. It doesn't mean a hero like Winston, that also is very reliant off of an aspect of his kit, like his bubble, is bad. It's only if that power value limits counterplay, feels obnoxious to play into, or I don't know, isn't dynamic in value or whatever. Heck, they even gave Winston alt fire so that he can do something in between bubble cycles, right? So yeah, before we go down the list though, I want to look at a couple of good examples where this has changed, because I don't want to be Mr. Negative Nancy all the time, because I do think that they've learned this lesson with other heroes, like Bastion, sure. Turret damage OTP, stood still, turret damage, but now he can move. They've given him an innate, and the innate has a lot of complexity with your mobility. It's actually the most important part of his kit in many ways, in my opinion. They buffed recon mode damage. They shrunk his hitbox, for crying out loud. Like, they really spread his power budget throughout his kit. And yeah, Bastion's still Bastion, but I have a lot more fun playing into Bastion. I have a lot more fun playing as Bastion. And when I pop turret form, I still feel pretty cool. They didn't remove turret form. Like, Bastion is still Bastion, but there's just more interesting things to play with. There's more toys. Yeah, heck, even freaking Tracer major perk. Like, it's not just, we have to remember perks now, right? Like, perks, you can have way too much of a Tracer's character's kit baked into the perks. Tracer's a great example. Doomfist with his major perks as well, right? Way too much of the power budget in those perks. You guys remember Malga, right? I mean, that's an easy example. Malga, sustain. Now, Slam actually matters a lot. Slam feels amazing, right? It's way easier to set squishes on fire than it used to be. I don't remember what it used to be back in the day, but it was way harder than this. It's way easier to reposition yourself than it used to be. His perks are more thoughtful and interesting. I hated Malga. I never played Malga. You guys want to see how much I played Malga on his release? 2 hours, man. I said, this hero sucks. What is this joke, right? And I was done. And now I like Malga. I mean, he's not perfect, but they were like, yeah, this character doesn't have to live through sustain. There's so many other things we can do. And now he's actually kind of fun to play. Maybe not everyone agrees with that, but Reinhardt going into Overwatch 2, not just a shield bot completely, although they still think they have some work to do, but it's gotten better. Fire strikes are faster. We have 2 of them. Charge is way stronger than it ever was in Overwatch 1. You even have more movement speed stuff. You have freaking shield bash if you want. It doesn't just have to be all about shield and shatter. I'm keep going, bro. Frick this. Let's be positive. Symmetra. She's not perfect, but holy crap, from Overwatch 1 Symmetra. Oh, and you ready for this? Overwatch freaking 2 Symmetra. Do you guys remember when her orb could 2-tap you? They're like, that was too strong. That too much of the power budget is in those orbs, right? So let's give sentry turrets recon. and they do less damage and they slow us, but they give you scouting, super valuable. Let's make teleporter a little bit better, a little bit faster, right? Her perks have opened up different playstyles, right? I know that none of the characters I listed are going to be popular for everybody, but I think almost, okay, I'm not going to say objectively, but in my opinion, all of those little tweaks and adjustments have shifted power budget around for the better, and for me, have made the characters more fun to play and play into. So like, I think that they have continually done this, and they've done a great job with it. So this is not a problem with Overwatch as a whole or the Overwatch developers as a whole. I think they've done a great job. I think there's just a couple of characters that keep coming up, and it just doesn't feel like they get changed, or they get changed way too late. Yeah, Pharah as well. Yeah, permaflight with Pharah was a huge part of power budget for Pharah, was permaflight and spam damage. Now, it's way more complicated than that. That perk is still broken, but people haven't figured that out yet. So I'm going to pull up something here. I think this gives them some important context. Check this out. Interview with DMZ's with Alec Dawson. This is the part we looked at in stream. Listen carefully. Listen carefully.
Good.
But how has like hero bans, of course, also slows down the tempo at which that some players, because a lot of players only play competitive, that they kind of discover all these things? Do you think we've seen that now with Jetpack? Yeah, Sombra is an old story in that sense. Is there a way to kind of relieve that kind of, or to kind of open it up a little more? I mean, quick play is a way, but I think some players never touch quick play, to be honest.
Yeah, it can be quite difficult, honestly. I think once there's a perception around a hero, and this is what we've seen, especially...
So associate game director here, guy, right? Lead gameplay designer. Not associate, I don't know if, maybe he is associate game director. I think he is. Listen carefully.
Especially from DPS heroes in particular. Even when they get nerfed to a certain state, the player base, it lags behind in terms of how good that hero is compared to their ban rate, right? Mm-hmm. We saw that well with Freya. And a lot of times it is just individual playstyle of the hero. Some things are a little frustrating. They just don't want to deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm. But true. Now he points that out there.
We saw with Freya for a while, like after she was buffed significantly at a certain point, but then got nerfed back down to a state that she actually was rather weak overall, at least in most ranks, and the ban rate just stayed, right? So it takes a while or something new to come along that kind of overshadows it. Like Freya's ban rate went down when Vendetta came out, right? So and I do think that might take a little bit for some of the heroes. Like I think Domina has a high ban rate as well. She's pretty strong launch. We're going to be looking at some things to tone her down a little bit as well.
Okay.
But that ban rate, there's like a perception lag, right?
Yeah.
From like when a hero is strong, what the player base thinks how strong they are, and then how strong they currently are. It takes a little bit of time.
Okay. Yeah.
So Alec is objectively correct. We've seen this again and again with characters, but the reason why I want to bring that up is that's my point right there, is that the player perception lag is something that you can't completely fix. But the reason why a very big contributing factor, and I think you guys will agree with this, to that player perception lag is that oftentimes when the characters are nerfed, they don't nerf the most annoying aspects of the character. I understand. I've seen the dev interviews, the fighting game dev interviews, the League of Legends, whatever. Well, the players don't understand what they really want. And again, I do agree with it to an extent. But when you can still be two-tapped by Freya, when Vendetta can just W mouse one on you permanently, and doesn't matter if she dies, doesn't matter if she gets traded, it doesn't matter if Sojourn does nothing if she hits the rail, right? And any rank above, plat or diamond, right? When we have all of these characters where so much of their power budget is in that aspect, and then you're repeatedly confronted with that power budget, then you're going to have some major problems with the community's perception and their overall performance. And so Alec is right about the lagging perception, but they're not doing themselves any favors with the recent DPS cast. They're not doing themselves any favors, because the player perception might not be that Freya wins every game, but that I just don't want to play versus Freya bolt spam. I don't want to play it. It sucks. I don't want to play versus Vendetta coming in like a silent AC 130 and slamming me over the head. I don't want to play it. And until you address those points of concern, this character's not going to stop being banned less. And so to me, he's right, but he's wrong because he's missing the point of why people don't like playing versus those characters. What else is Freya supposed to do, though? We're going to talk about that. I agree to an extent, but we're going to talk about that. Again, there's some nuance here. I'm going to get some wiggle room. And he could see that. He also mentioned that he was like, oh, well, yeah, there's different aspects that they just don't want to play to. Yes, exactly. They're aware of it. I think that for some of the DPS casts, they've been way off. The problem is that we've had several heroes at low, medium, and high win rates grow or continue to grow in hatred from Overwatch community due to specific unwillingness or incapability to adapt, adjust, or swing power values into other kit aspects. I'm not saying that any of these are easy fixes. I just have given a lot of feedback on several of these characters. And some of them even going back as 4 years in the case of Sojourn, like 4 years of feedback for this character, and we just still have the exact same problem. So I'm going to do my best to give my input, my ideas, and crucially, I think that these heroes do have salvageable or even interesting hero designs when executed well. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wasting my time. Okay, let's start with Vendetta, because that's the obviously low-hanging fruit. Most obvious recent example. Okay, wildly OP. Has been nerfed as of this video, 5 times? I think you could check the Blizzard forums, 5 times. 5 separate nerfs. Not as in 5 total nerfs. I mean 5 entire patches with Vendetta nerfs. 5 times. Every damage aspect of her kit, to my knowledge, with the exception of maybe her ult, has been nerfed. Except for overhead as of the last patch. Now, it just got nerfed, but we're now over 2.5 months since her release, and her overhead just got nerfed. Not her shift, not her fire strike, not her normal swing. The skill shot overhead got nerfed. Now, why that's an issue is the fact that combos don't matter as much anymore. And they've actually, breakpoints and combos have mattered less and less and less. And the character has consistently just been boiled down to swing, swing, overhead, swing, swing, overhead, swing, swing, overhead, stage, overhead, 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 overhead. Now, I'm not going to go down the entire problem with Vendetta. Maybe that's for another video. I've talked about it on stream multiple times. The TLDR is that the ultimate dive character is one of the slowest characters with mobility in the game. Every aspect of her mobility is slow, awkward, clunky, doesn't flow. It doesn't have the movement speed or animation speed. So you have a character that is fully reliant either off of raw beef through her block and armor, or just dies, but gets a trade anyway because it's all overhead. She has the highest death per 10, I think Gavin was saying, out of the entire hero cast, and yet was maintaining a 54, 55, and even 58, 59% win rate. And it's because the speed, you're not rewarded for comboing super well, as much as you should be. You're not rewarded for super cool staging and flanking and disengaging like you are with any other ultimate dive character. And you just slam and overhead and slam and overhead and slam and overhead and slam and overhead. And this is what happens when all you do is you fixate on, oh, well, we want to keep the overhead because it's part of the hero fantasy. It feels good. Listen, guys, this swing does 45 freaking damage. Why does this need to do 130? I know they just nerfed it, but it was 130 as of 2 days ago. 130. And they nerfed every other aspect of your kit except for that. Every other. You have mobility, you have movement limitations. You are not the ultimate dive character. You need reworking the snappiness and speed. Here's another fun part. The reason why her block is so inconsistent. How many of you guys have played a lot of Vendetta? I played a lot of Vendetta. How many times have you guys felt invulnerable with block? And then how many times have you guys felt like you just explode instantly and the block doesn't even matter? Right? You want to know why? Because blocking abilities, like in the case of Hazard, need to be used to layer in between your movement and your motions, okay? If you are, for example, if I go in with overhead, let me kind of give you guys a gameplay loop example, and I go for a combo, okay. If I block here to buy myself time for overhead to get out, I'm dead right there. That frame right there, I'm dead. It doesn't matter. See, the block could be used to buy time like a Doomfist for a slam or a punch, but slam and punch, and even Hazard's Leap, are way different than that blade toss. It's too slow. So the block, ironically, we could go all the way back about why block is inconsistent because her disengage tools are too freaking slow. They don't work. She's either unkillable because you don't have the damage to punch through the block anyway, or she instantly dies because you're sitting there looking at the sword in the sky. And this has been feedback that was given earlier, but it all boils back to if you put too much power budget into overhead, then you can't talk about giving Vendetta more mobility. Are you crazy? She's way too OP as it is. So the entire hero fantasy as the ultimate dive character was an unkillable blob that just spat at you and slammed you over that over and over and over again. And so a hero fantasy of overhead swing should be the vast majority of your power budget, which was objectively the case. Has just completely trashed your ability to play the character because now you can't play them. It's trashed the community's perception of the new character. People don't like her. People didn't even like her in the cinematic because people are so fed up with her in ranked. And this was talked about the week she was released. Within 2 weeks, this is it. They made it better with the sword toss speed and tighter range, but then they reverted the toss range. It became slow again. Exactly. So this is what happens, right? Like I understand the crit feels good. It does. I like it. I like the crit noise. I like it doing more damage, the overhead. I really do. But there's a gradient there. And we missed it. And we missed the opportunity. And so there's just been an unwilling to touch this. We're fricked. You know, I'm quite confident. I hope that some of these things will get changed at some point. But it's just too late. It's too late for the community's perception. The damage has been done. And now we're stuck in a position to where people just hate Vendetta and will always hate Vendetta. And that's just how it's going to be moving forward for a long time, at least. And you know what? I'm going to say it. Magic felt better. Magic was a better hero design, at least in terms of execution. Different game, different parameters, definitely a little bit more bursty with Magic, but Magic was better. Magic was faster. Magic was more combo focused. Magic was way more fluid. Magic was way more satisfying. And the potential was there. Listen, when I'm simping for Marvel Rivals, at least you got to sit and think. I'm not saying that's objectively true. That is a subjective experience. But I'm telling you, when I'm liking a Rivals hero design, you know what I'm saying? Wasted opportunity. And let me tell you something. I actually don't even think you need to change all of the things. I mean, there's even things like the camera lock that apparently has been fixed recently. The third person with shift. The shift also doesn't catch roofs like mobility cooldowns do. Like there were so many things about Magic, Freudian slip, the Vendetta that just were never changed. Doomfist. Feels fitting to follow with Doomfist. Oh, you know where I'm going with this one. You guys know where I'm going with this one. Okay, might want to mute it. Empowered Punch sucks! So much of this character's ability power is tied into getting your Empowered Punch. It dramatically increases your lethality, not just from the punch reset, not just from the damage increase, but also from the stun. And his slam, post-season 9, 2 years later, does 50 damage. 50. It's all Empowered Punch, man. You know, and Doomfist is a trickier one, maybe even trickier than Vendetta, at least in terms of because there is a lot of problems about, okay, well, then what would you do with Empowered Punch? You know, okay, so we can have that conversation. But you know what? You know what we could do right now? Here's a great idea. How about we just buff slam damage to 60, 65, whatever, right now, and then nerf Empowered Punch by 10. Or reduce the stun by quarter of a second or half a second. Like just a gradient, right? That hasn't been touched in 2 years. 2 years. So with Doomfist, it's harder because you do have to start thinking again about what do you want Empowered Punch to do? When we did the 5-minute fix video, we did have some problems coming up with ideas. It's challenging. I think Doomfist is not terrible, but a lot of people do hate him. And a lot of the problem with people playing versus Doomfist is Empowered Punch. And also playing Doomfist is Empowered Punch. Because if you don't get that Empowered Punch, you suck. You suck. Which is why his output, like Vendetta, can feel very volatile and very specifically reliant. And the worst part of Doomfist is it doesn't even feel like you're in control of whether the output is going to be the same. With other characters, you're like Zarya, for example. You don't shoot a Zarya. Okay, yeah, that bubble has its own issues, maybe. But at least if they don't shoot your bubble, you could do something. You can take some space with it. With E, you can't even, if they don't shoot your block, so what? You bought yourself 2 seconds? You can't even move or set up properly. So much of your budget, even more so, is please feed me. And if it doesn't, well, okay. So again, way too much of his power budget is into that slam. Feast or famine. He hits the punch, great. Doesn't hit the punch, not so great. I'm not going to talk about uppercut. We're not adding, I don't agree with uppercut being added, whatever. But the TLDR is that all of his budget is into Empowered Punch right now. And so as long as that's going to be the case, he's going to remain Feast or Famine, and that is not a character that's being touched. Freya. 1 year after Freya's released, almost 1 year, I think 10 months, they took away her 2-tap, gave her more distance on dash, and tightened her spread in primary fire. So if you guys don't know, her primary fire spread was really, really bad. Now, her win rate was bad and has remained bad after that. And they've given her back her 225 breakpoint, which I don't agree with. I don't remember the exact say. I really hope this doesn't come across as I told you so. So I have made a lot of mistakes with my predictions and conclusions. My feedback is not always right. It is frustrating for me to see characters like Freya that I actually kind of like playing at times just remain hated, permanently banned, and trashed here. Because I asked the question a couple of weeks, is it possible to play without a 2-tap? And 10 months later, And this is a character that could have had dash distance buffed way sooner. The primary fire spread could have been buffed way sooner. She still can't use her abilities during her ultimate, which makes it very feast or famine. She could still be 250 HP if they removed her 2-tap. This was supposed to be... I kind of simped for this character initially because I saw potential with her kit and I was expecting more tweaks. I saw potential for an actually interesting dive sniper hybrid character. And it just never came to fruition. Like we were basically, you can't function without 2-tap, no dash speed, no distance, no primary fire spread, no cooldowns during ult, no 250. And they've experimented with it recently, like Vendetta. Like there's been more experimentation. But again, it's too little, man. It's too late. It's 10 months. It's too late, you know? It's too late. And so now you had a character that is trash performance-wise, like Sojourn, which we'll get to in a second, was dominating the pro levels even when she was struggling in ranked because of the edge case of what she could do when supported perfectly and you had the perfect mechanics for it. Had incredibly inconsistent matchups. Could feel like you're like absolutely dominating the lobby with 2 taps and still be losing the match. It's too little, too late. People hated the noise of her bolt spam. People hated the fact of taking 2 bolts and dying. People didn't care if you 225 when you're 2-tapping them across the map. At 250, she would be a spam down main hero? No. That is a misunderstanding of how the game works. No 250 character benefits from spamming down main. None. And I still think there's potential there. Sure. But you have a mobility pilled character that doesn't use her mobility except to go up and shoot you from 40 meters away. I'm being a little bit facetious, but that's mostly kind of how the gameplay loop works. You guys have seen my Freya coaching VODs. That's how it works. And so she's hated, and she's banned, and nobody wants to play versus her. And so you have an aspect of the kit, that 2-tap, that ability, those important breakpoints, getting all of the power budget. What's the meme with like the starving, and then this the pipe, and this the dripping, and then the gushing water into the... Yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm not saying that these are all easy fixes. Freya, you could talk about flight. We could talk about a lot of other things. I understand. It's not easy. But I just refuse to believe that this character couldn't be in a better state. Remember, we talked about a lot of characters that still are difficult with Surf Summit, Bash and Sim, Ryan, but they're in a better state. Should not banned every game. Sojourn. Oh boy. This character has been a rail bot for 4 years since the alpha. She was so unbelievably broken on launch that even yours truly could win games versus GM players with her. Not even joking. Complete rail bot. Now, though, her rail has been nerfed, especially since postseason 9. 120, what is it, I don't know what the headshot multiplier is, at 1.5? Yeah, so like 180, I think 180. But she's still a rail bot. Still a rail bot. Primary fire is it's better than it used to be, but still inconsistent. And now we're 225 HP. So she's even more glass cannon. Oh, and by the way, she sucks. She sucks in ranked up until even GM, and she's still bad in GM. But in pro scrims with Suzu, perfect pocketed off angle, don't even get me started in Kiriko. Same exact problem. Still could be server admin. I legitimately have sessions where I'll coach Sojourn and Freya players, and I'll be like, yeah, you had a pretty good game, but you just missed a couple of rails, and that's literally the game. It feels like I'm coaching a Widowmaker player again. And it's a shame because I think this highly mobile, up-to-date, techie, jump, movement, shoot, cut, like this is cool. Even the concept of rail is cool. But they've basically said that if there isn't that big, explosive, impactful rail, then people aren't going to want to play the character. My suggestion has been, I won't go down the details too much, which was like, okay, so if we use the rail early, can we reduce the delay? So in other words, if I want to weave in shots like this, I can do so, right? So you see that delay after the rail? Can we have that scale with how much rail charge you use? So if you want to have the big powerful shot, you can, but you're actually rewarded a lot for weaving in those hit scan shots and so on, and that's just never happened. And again, this has been 4 years. 4 years of a character that basically just builds up her rail and then shoots it. Builds up her rail, shoots it. I like the concept of rail mostly. I think it's cool. But it is what it is. And by the way, this is not the only thing it could do either. If they did that change too, they could also adjust the damage fall. So look at that 40 to 60. They could bump that to 30, 50. Increase her HP to 250. If you guys haven't played Sojourn recently, she's basically build a rail total glass cannon. Total glass cannon. A high-tech slide disruptor shot, run and gun, cybernetic is a glass cannon. She's just sniper pilled all over again. Would she become a female Soldier 76? With a rail gun and more vertical mobility? Sure. That was actually the analogy that I used 4 years ago. It's like, I would love a Soldier 76 with more verticality and a more up-to-date hit scan helix. Sure, with a bit more utility. Yeah, why does she have a 60-meter fall off in her rail? Well, congrats. Guys, For context, we were playing Sojourn more in scrims. Sojourn was out sniping Widowmakers on Gibraltar during a Widow meta in Overwatch League scrims. She was the more favored sniper because it was a lot easier to build rail back then. And we would win every sniper duel with rail with the same range. So again, it's just like, it's this, everything is a poke character, and we have to keep the rail functioning like a one shot across the map. I'm being, again, facetious, but this is what's happened. We've had 4 years of this. We've made zero progress with this character. So this character is really bad for new players who, honestly, I've coached some people. Bro, my sister, my little baby sister, she's not a baby, but she loves coming to my house and playing Overwatch. And she loves Sojourn. She loves Sojourn. But goodness gracious, she's talking about getting into Overwatch, right? Wants to start playing Overwatch. I want to pick up, I want to play Sojourn. She wants to actually like properly play, not just because she comes to my house and she plays versus robots for hours. She loves it. But if she wants to actually get in there, she's going to have a really hard time with Sojourn. She even struggles with the buck. It's like, people want to play your characters, man. But they can't, because this is a character that's only accessible for GM players. And not because, the kid is too complicated. It's because that all of the power budget is into a one-shot sniper headshot. And so the pro players are unhappy and the low-rank players are unhappy. Everything is sniper pilled in Overwatch. I feel like I'm talking about the range problem with Overwatch again. You see these conversations tie together, though? Like, you see how these things naturally flow together? Where we start talking about, like, the hero identity be baked into one aspect, and it just so happens that those aspects tend to be burst-related. What was the point of Season 9? Ha ha ha. But seriously, like, it keeps happening, right? It's the burst. It's the burst. It's the burst. It's the burst. And not just the burst accessibility. Like, having Sojourn have the potential for 180 rail, debatable, but that it's the only thing that makes sense most of the time. Like a lot of my coaching sessions, if you guys have watched any of my Sojourn coaching sessions, there's some nuance here, of course, but a lot of times with Sojourn, it's not good to use your rail until you're at a one-shot breakpoint. So it's not good to layer your rail in early. There's no nuance. There's very little nuance there. It makes the gameplay loop, coaching and playing Sojourn, very dull. So there's not even situations in which you like whereas a well-designed ability, there's a lot of risk, costs, and benefits. With rail, it's just a lot less so. It's mostly just a burst tool, and there's no point layering it. There's no, you can weave in your rail in between your shots, but just keep in mind that if you weave too much, you're going to be caught with your pants down without your dueling. No. Just shoot it and save it. I like the skill shot potential, but that's the only thing that we have here. We've even had microcosms of this. The Ashe range buff, where they looked at Ashe underperforming a little bit, which I don't think she was underperforming. They buff her range even further. They did partially revert that, but Ashe still has more range than she did before. More importantly, keep your eyes carefully on what they do with Jetpack Cat. Not necessarily Jetpack Cat, actually maybe more Domina, right? Where people have a lot of problems with her shield. A lot of her power budget is in her shield. I've already said a million times how I've critiqued the execution of her shield, but her ban rate seems to have exploded. And I'm starting to see a lot of players getting frustrated at how her shield functions. It feels uninteractive, even factoring in the panel system. We talked about it earlier today. And really the irony here, ultimately, to kind of conclude here, is preserving a myopic vision of like what the character needs to feel unique. When you overcook there, you've destroyed chances for the people who actually enjoy the hero to play it, depending on the rank, of course. And I don't want to hear just wait for the community to find a new enemy necessarily, because at that point I've waited months and I've kind of grown disillusioned with your approach to train new heroes. Overall, I know this is just my opinion, and I know people like these sharper aspects, but there's a balance here. And I think the community perception is a wicked, wicked tool, and it's not always inaccurate. I just hope to see more development spent on the root cause analysis of player hatred, to be honest. Because I think a lot of the player hatred is focused on many of the aspects of the character that I think from an outsider perspective are problematic. We've seen microcosms of this many times, and I hope to see a better performance from that moving forward. That's my rant. Thoughts? Yeah, part of the ban phase isn't exclusively, as Alex said, it is not something you can exclusively ban or balance in designer on. I agree. Or that at the time they ruined Ana because the perks, right. And also Tracer being wildly overtuned because all of her power budget was in her perks. And then what do? Well, they slapped her perks a little bit down and then just ruined the way the character's gun felt. It's like, no. You have one of the most strong minor perks in the game, and then probably the strongest major perk in the game, or one of the strongest major perks in the game, and then they just made her gun feel terrible. And the worst one about Tracer is Tracer doesn't have hero identity through perks, Yeah, even to a lesser extent with Genji, Right, Genji's got a pretty strong perk set. Definitely up there, and we get 10-second deflect. I don't think it's all about perks, but it is for some characters. Wu Yang in my 14-second wave and 225. I mean, Wu Yang's a great example. It was one that was initially tilted about because he was 250 and had a lower cooldown on a wave, and yet people were getting really good at the orb spam from behind walls. And they're like, well, his orb spam is his identity, so we're not going to touch his damage. They did nerf the splash a tiny bit, but they just completely destroyed his health and his kit. They just completely massacred my boy. And guess what? I don't enjoy playing him anymore. Heck, even Zenyatta with Discord, right? You know, to a lesser extent. I think way too much of his power budget's into that Discord. We've rebuffed it. Symmetra, right? A lot of Symmetra's power is in her perks, too. Anyway, that's my rant. I know maybe not everybody agrees with every single facet, because I'm probably wrong. But I hope you guys understand my general point is that sometimes certain aspects of kits get protected because they're seen as the hero identity, and we're unable to like give any criticism or feedback onto how the identity functions, and instead we have to slash and hack every single other part of that character's kit, and it's just what the frick, man.